Hi,
This
everybody.
conference will now be recorded.
And Mike Jones is here.
Hi, Mike.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
I've got about 1 minute off, so I'll give you about a minute, and I'll call the meeting to order.
Oliver, I'm here as well. It's Paul.
Oh, hey, Paul. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Paul. Neil.
Hey. Oh, hey, Neil.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. David, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Genowine,
Here.
Mr. Mahoney,
Here.
Mr. Crandall,
Here.
Simcoe here.
Okay, thank you, and I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Allegiance
of the
United
States
States of America,
and to the republic
to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
with
and
liberty,
justice for all.
all.
Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the April 7th meeting, and I'll move approval.
Second.
Call the roll of Mr. Genowine,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes. Next item is additions or deletions to the agenda. Do you have any, Mr. Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no additions or deletions to the agenda. I would only note that from the time the notice was sent out Friday until the meeting today, there has been an executive session which was added and put on the published agenda to discuss pending or imminent court action with our counsel present.
Okay, thank you. Are there anybody from the public that would like to be heard on agenda items? And that would be items 7 through 11, which are the reports from each department, and then our fiscal resolutions. Okay, hearing none, I'll move to the zoning department. There's a monthly report. That's the only thing on the agenda, and that was sent out. And unless there are questions from one of the elected officials, we'll move on to the next item. Okay, the next item is the Road and Service Department report. And again, unless there's any questions from an elected official, we'll move on to the next agenda item. I'll give you a few seconds here. All right, the next item is the Fire Department, and the monthly report was included with the agenda. And unless there are any questions from an elected official, we'll move on to the Police Department. Okay, hearing no questions on the Fire Department, I'll move on to the Police Department, which is item number 10. And all we have is the monthly report. And again, if any elected official has a question, we'll entertain that now. Okay, if not, we'll move on to the fiscal officer. Mr. Simcoe, you've got a number of resolutions here.
Yes, I do. I have resolution 20, -088, and it pertains to establishing new revenue and expense line items and appropriating funds for the road department's on new trench safety grant. Excuse me, geez.
Any questions on the resolution? If not, I'll move the resolution 20-080 to establish new revenue and expense accounts in regard to the trench road department trench grant.
Second.
Mr. Genowine,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes. Next item on
And,
the
next-
agenda. Go ahead, Dave.
It's a resolution 20-081, and it pertains to advancing monies from the road department to the road grant fund for the new trench safety grant.
I'll move resolution 20-081, advancement of funds.
Second.
Mr. Genowine,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes. Next item,
And
Dave.
then I have resolution 20-082. It pertains to appropriation required for the road department local share of new trench safety grant fund and to create a purchase order for monies received for fire damage monies. So, yes.
I'll move resolution 20-082, township appropriate from unencumbered balance.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Genowine,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes. Last
Yes,
item
and
is the
then I
March fiscal report.
Well, I have this resolution 20-082. Oh no, we just did that.
Oh.
Jeez, okay.
I think we're
Uh,
down to the,
Yeah, we are. I'm sorry.
and that was part of
well, we
the
have
agenda, Dave. I think.
Yes. Yes.
Well, unless there's
We
any
have
questions.
we have the March analysis that was sent out to you of our finances, and you can see we received our first half of the property tax settlement, and it's really 3 months, but there's nothing here that's unusual. All of the expenditures are below the standard percentage of 25%, but once again, it's hard to read anything into these except nothing is jumping out at us, and so that's good, I think. But that's all I have.
Any questions from Mr. Simcoe? All right, if not, we'll move on to hearing of the public on non-agenda items. And if you would, please identify yourself and your address if you have any questions on non-agenda items.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Bud Crosby, 4500 block of Westbourne Road. I know these are unusual times, and this meeting format is certainly unique. I was wondering, has there been any consideration given to the upcoming public hearings to reschedule and delay until a more normal type of meeting can be presented? This is an interesting format, and it has benefits to it. I think that perhaps a more normal public hearing would be prudent in the current circumstance.
There's a couple of public
Well,
hearings, but I assume you're talking about the JED?
That is the only public hearing that I'm aware of. But so yes, that is the public hearing for the JED, which I believe is scheduled on in the first part of May. I don't know what the state of Ohio will have issued as far as relaxing orders. But
Do you have any
I think good
comments,
consideration should.
What are you suggesting? It be delayed?
I think it should be rescheduled until a more normal type of meeting format can be held, where we go to the video conferencing format. That's my opinion.
You mean You mean a public hearing after the ban on the virus? Is that what you're saying? To wait until after that?
I think that would be prudent, yes, until this current restrictive stay-at-home order is relaxed to some extent.
I'm not quite. What if we add that to the executive session and discuss it at that time and then get back to Bud? What are the thoughts on that?
Is that an executive subject topic?
Well, I'm asking what you think, John and Neil.
You know, Bud, I know you had emailed me earlier in the week some questions about the JED, and I thought I would address them here because, to be honest, there was a couple of them that I have a good idea, but I wasn't positive about it. So, you know, the history of the JED, you know, it came about with Oak Grove, correct? And they were looking for a property tax abatement and wanted to explore the JED option. And to my best recollection, I can't remember if that was 6 months ago or a year. I really don't, I can't recall. Can you fill us in a little bit more, Oliver?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Genowine. So that was the May 7th, 2019 trustees meeting. And that was the resolution for the Oakleaf-Toledo Partnership Enterprise Zone Agreement.
Okay. But is there any other information you were looking for, or what is your?
I was interested in the background history of the JED. I have some other questions about the JED to explore outside of this meeting.
Okay.
But the major concern that I have right now is that you are going to be you are scheduled to have a public meeting and public hearing in the very near future. And I do understand that the action the trustees took a year ago included the expectation that Wallet Corporation, Oakleaf people would petition for a JED, and that the income tax would be generated there for the entire parcel property. I do understand that you have a memorandum of understanding with the city that was established in the year 2017. Although I haven't seen the exact agreement that was written, that would be something I will request to see. It resulted from, I believe it was resolution 17-041. See what you actually.
Well, hold it, Bud. Though it's not an agreement. It's a memorandum of understanding.
Yes,
There's
yes,
been
sir.
no agreement.
I understand that you agreed to a memorandum of understanding. And when I looked at the resolution, it did mention that that memorandum would be attached to that resolution. But within your iCompass search records, the actual copy of the memorandum of understanding is not married to that resolution. So I was just wondering, had been any thought given to rescheduling and a new public notification of a rescheduled public hearing, and give any thought or consideration in these unusual times?
No, I
Well,
get
John
that.
Crandall, or
I'm
trustees,
suggesting
I think
maybe. Go ahead, Dave.
well, we would probably have to, before we could consider it, one thought would be whether there is a legal requirement as to when you have to hold these public hearings. I don't know under these JEDs, but that'd be something we'd have to ask our legal counsel, I think. I don't know that the trustees are necessarily opposed to it, but I think that there might be some time limitations on these things, holding a hearing within a certain period of time, stuff like that. I don't know.
Well, Dave and Neil and John, what I was suggesting is maybe we add it to executive session today and discuss it there and then get back to Bud. I see Bud's
I'm not
point,
sure.
but it
Yeah.
might be a long we may not be able to meet the time requirements that we're required to do. I think we've already printed Mr. Turner, haven't we printed a notice of this hearing or not on the JED?
Correct. So the notice, there needs to be at least a 30-day notification of the public hearing at which the public can comment on the documents. So that was set for the May 5th meeting. And if it were the trustees' pleasure to move it, then we would need to publish another notice to provide a new 30-day period of time. This runs in conjunction with the process at the city of Sylvania, so they would also more than likely republish their notice as well if they were to follow the same path we did.
John Crandall, I'm not sure that it is a proper. I'm not, without. I don't know that it's a proper subject for an executive session. I don't know. My guess is it's not. That's my thought, but I'm not our legal counsel, obviously.
Well,
He's on
then
mute.
I guess
Well, maybe
we should answer
isn't
Bud
he going to
right
be
now.
here? Yeah, isn't he going to be here tonight? I mean, isn't
He's on mute. Just muted. There he comes.
He's on the phone. Yeah.
Pardon, John? Oh, well, if John Burrell's on the line, then maybe he could tell us if it's appropriate for executive session.
Yeah, it is. It is not a proper executive session topic.
Okay.
All right, so I think we need to make the decision now.
Yeah.
Is there
John
a
Burrell, is there
motion?
any sort of time limitation on? Is there any sort of time limitation on when this hearing has to be held, John Burrell? Do you know? I know it's a pop question on you here, but
No, I don't know for sure. I would hate to answer that because I am not positive.
Well, isn't there two hearings? Doesn't the city have a hearing also? I think they've advertised for theirs. What is it, Mr. Turner? Is that the 4th?
Correct. The city published their notice for May 4th, and there would be, for example, the fact that there's a public hearing does not require action on the same night on the contracts, but it would be my, and I would confirm this with Don Sanderson, the counsel working on the JED, but if the public hearing, if it was the pleasure of the trustees to move it back, then my thought would be we'd have to republish the notice for the public hearing to provide the statutory 30-day period of time.
Well, if we can't discuss this at the executive session, then I would ask if there's a motion.
I kind of arrived late here. This is Lauren Sangstock speaking. I would like to throw my 2 cents in with public hearings on such a matter as a JED. I think that you should perhaps hold those kind of meetings at a point in time where the people can participate in it a little bit more face to face, as well as, if, and I don't know what your attendance in those hearings are, if you were to have, 15 to 40 people here, it would be, I think, a difficult meeting to hear anybody effectively make any presentations or their sides of their opinions in the matter. So for what it's worth, I come from government finance and I administered a JED when I was at the city of Macedonia. So I'm well acquainted with them, and I would only suggest that it would be a little more conducive to the public to do it. I don't know. Again, you'd have to ask your legal counsel as to whether there's any legal requirements to do it. None that I know of. But you could, either now or at that public hearing say, we've decided if you give participation to reconsider and give it another 30 days. I would certainly think that, people involved in that JED want to attend it, not just the people that are participating in the written agreement, but maybe existing employees in that area would have a vested interest in knowing this.
Yeah, it's difficult, Lauren. I can understand that by phone. I don't know if you heard, but I think Mr. Crosby recommended that we wait until after I'll call it the stay at home to have the hearing. But we've already published for the hearing on May 5th. The city's published for May 4th. And to our knowledge, they haven't taken any action. So I assume they're hearing. I don't know how they're doing it, but it's still on the 4th. And we cannot discuss this in executive session. So
Right.
I'm asking if there's a motion on this.
With the phase one of re-entering, normal life, does it include government meetings? Could we have an in-person meeting if we still practice somewhat social distancing? And again, come at your own risk.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Turner, but I think we could. We would have to seat people 6 feet apart, and I guess we could do that. Is that correct, Mr. Turner?
Right. So there's nothing that prevents in-person meetings at this time, but I believe the CDC guidelines about meetings of 10 are, and I would actually, with John Burrell on the line, we've discussed this as well. They don't prevent meetings from happening, but it makes it essentially encourages a format where you're not going over the 10. But John Burrell, if you'd like to weigh in on this point, please.
Yeah, the House Bill 197, which allows public bodies to meet in this format, doesn't require you to. You could hold public meetings, but you're still subject to the Ohio Department of Health's public health orders, which prohibits groups of, I think, 10 or more. So what you would have to do is see that after May 1st, we'd have to see what the Ohio Department of Health does in terms of limiting size of public meetings. So I doubt, based on what the governor said today, that even after May 1st, they're going to permit public gatherings of any substantial size.
Well, I think we're still back to, do we have a motion?
What's the motion?
I don't know. We
Well,
obviously can't talk about this in executive session. And
Yeah,
if we
I
don't
don't-
have a motion, we should move on.
I think let's move on. I mean, I guess here's my thought. We've been talking about this since March 19th publicly. It's been a topic of conversation once a month for the last 6 months with regards to legal fees and everything else that we've done with this. If this is the protocol for Northwest Ohio to sit and wait for them to release, for us to sit here and wait till we're allowed to have a public meeting, we may be in October and November before this is all said and done. I think I think we still need to continue to move forward.
I share your concerns, Neil, but I also think we should be in concert with the city. It seems like if they hold a hearing and then we don't have a hearing or delay it, I don't know what that means.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. If the city's going to do it on the 4th, I don't have a problem discussing it on the 5th, and hopefully that people would know through our proper channels that they're more than welcome to join this meeting. And if we've got a lot of people that want to do it, maybe we make an exception, not have our managers at that meeting where we can free up space for people to be on the computer if they want to talk.
Well,
whatever you guys want to do, I'm okay with it.
No, I think we've heard from the public, and what I'm saying is I haven't heard a motion yet. So I would think right now we stand on May 5th, unless I'm
Oh, I see.
missing something here.
Got it. Okay, I follow you.
All right, well, I think we'll move on then, and I appreciate your comments, Laura. I would also like to just inform the board under open discussion that Mr. Turner and Mike Jones are working on a press release in regard to the Cox report, and that'll be on our website. That's the only thing I have. Do you have anything else, Mr. Genuine?
No, but I might suggest, better instructions for these meetings. I think the elected officials and certainly the department heads and administrator can all have a voice here, but I think everyone else might need to be put on mute and to communicate questions through chat. So we don't have the feedback, and make this a little bit more streamlined, maybe put a link to the website. But I don't know, it just seems like this meeting's been a little painful, and I think we're all having growing pains with this, but I'm just throwing some thoughts out there.
Okay, you were cutting out on me, so I got about every other word, but I think I got the drift.
Yes.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Mahoney, for open discussion? Do you have anything, Mr. Semto?
No, I do not.
Okay, I'll move on to executive session then. I'll move to go into executive session at 5:26, and that's to discuss with our legal counsel an upcoming hearing in regard to the building demolitions on Holland Savannah Road near the bike trail.
Second?
Mr. Denowine,
Yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes,
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
and also attending this session will be Mr. Burrell, and we'll have a separate conversation on this and Mr. Turner, and we'll dial into that, and we do not expect any action this evening.
Okay. And at this point, we'll close out this part and
Yes.
elected officials call and attorney call into the closed session line. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how long this will